73-year-old woman in Ohio, 30 years in the same house. Mortgage paid off in 2003, gets a letter from the county, ignores it because it looks like junk mail. 6 months later, her house is on the auction block. 81-year-old man in Texas, veteran, Purple Heart. House worth $450,000. Dies peacefully. His daughter inherits the house and a tax bill for $112,000 due in 9 months. She doesn't have it. The state takes the house. 67-year-old couple in Florida. Reverse mortgage seemed like the answer. No monthly payments, right? Property taxes jump 40% in 3 years. Insurance triples after the hurricane. They can't keep up. Bank forecloses. They're out. Here's the question nobody wants to ask. If you own something, how can someone take it? I'm going to explain exactly how the system works, why 2026 is when the pressure gets real, and what you can actually do about it. And look, I've spent 10 years reading the documents that make people fall asleep. Tax code, state statutes, Medicaid recovery guidelines, the stuff your accountant bills you $300 an hour to summarize. I'm going to tell you what actually matters. Here's the thing. We operate under this beautiful fiction that paid off means yours, like truly yours, the American dream, right? You work 30 years, you make the payments, you burn the mortgage, you own it. Except that's not how the legal structure works. What you actually own is more like a subscription with penalties for non-payment that you didn't read about in the terms and conditions. I call this the eternal lease. You think you bought the property. The government thinks you're renting it from them annually via property tax, and the lease never expires. You can't pay it off. You can't opt out. You just keep paying, or they take it back. That's the model. Keep that in your head because it's going to explain everything else. Now, you might be thinking, okay, property taxes, sure, but I pay those. Here's where it gets interesting. The game is changing in 2026 in 4 very specific ways. And at least one of them applies to you if you're over 50 and own property in the United States. I'm going to walk through all 4. Pay attention to the incentives. That's where the truth lives. Escalation 1, property tax foreclosure. This is the one that shocks people because it feels impossible. You paid off the house, how can they take it? Easy. They never stopped having a claim on it. Every year, January 1st, your local government places what's called a tax lien on your property. Doesn't matter if you're a veteran, doesn't matter if you're 90. Doesn't matter if you've lived there since 1968. The lien comes first. It's senior to everything. Medical bills, credit card debt, your cousin who lent you $5,000, none of that matters. The county is first in line. Let me tell you about a guy named Don. Not someone I know personally. This is a documented case out of Michigan. Don is 76, retired factory worker, house paid off in 1997. He's living on Social Security, about $1,800 a month, and a small pension, maybe another $1,100, $2,900 a month total. His property taxes are $4,200 a year. Manageable, right? Then his wife gets sick, cancer. The out-of-pocket costs, even with Medicare, are brutal. Copays, travel to specialists. Medications that aren't covered. They drain their savings. He skips the property tax payment in 2023, thinking he'll catch up next year. Here's what happens. The county adds a penalty, 10%. So his $4,200 bill is now $4,620. Then they add interest, 1% per month in Michigan, compounding. Then they add administrative fees, another $150 for the delinquency notice. By the time Don realizes this is serious, 18 months later, he owes $6,100. He doesn't have it. The county moves to foreclosure. Michigan law allows them to auction the property. They do. The house sells for $187,000. Don owed $6,000. The county takes their $6,000, takes the auction fees, takes the administrative costs. What's left? About $178,000 legally could go back to Don. Guess how often that happens smoothly? Almost never. The systems in place to return excess funds are bureaucratic mazes. Don ends up with a fraction of it, 18 months later, after hiring a lawyer he can't afford. He lost a house worth $187,000 because he couldn't come up with $6,000 at the right time. This isn't a crime story. This is how the system is designed. The county has an incentive to foreclose because they get paid. The buyers at auction get property for 70 cents on the dollar. Everybody wins except Don. Now here's the kicker. Property taxes are going up faster than fixed incomes. The National Tax Lien Association, yeah, that's a real thing, estimates that around 600,000 properties in the US have delinquent property taxes right now. That's not a small number. And with inflation pushing up assessments and insurance costs exploding, more seniors are getting squeezed. You're sitting on an asset you can't liquidate fast enough to cover an annual bill that never stops coming. Escalation 2, estate taxes. And this is where 2026 becomes the headline. Right now, as I'm recording this in early 2026, we're at the tail end of a temporary federal estate tax exemption that was set by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 2017. That law roughly doubled the exemption. For 2025, the federal exemption is around $13.9 million per person. If your estate is worth less than that, you pay zero federal estate tax. Sounds great, right? Most people think, I'm not worth $13 million. I'm safe. But here's the thing. That exemption sunsets at the end of 2025. Congress has to act to extend it. If they don't, and right now it's not looking good, the exemption drops back to about 6 million per person, adjusted for inflation, maybe 6.5, cut in half, essentially. Now you're asking yourself, I'm still not worth 6 million. What's the problem? Let me paint a picture. You're a married couple. You live in a high-cost area. Let's say Seattle. You bought a house in 1985 for $160,000. Today, it's worth $1.2 million. You've got a 401k that you've been contributing to for 30 years. Let's say it's worth $900,000. You've got some savings, some bonds, maybe another $300,000. Combined, your estate is worth $2.4 million. Under the current rules, no problem. Under the new rules, starting in 2026, still no problem federally because you're under the 6.5 million. But here's what nobody tells you. 12 states have their own estate taxes, and their exemptions are way lower. Massachusetts, $2 million. Oregon, $1 million. New York, $6.9 million, but it phases out fast if you're over. If you live in Oregon and your estate is worth $2.4 million, the state is coming for a cut, and they want it within 9 months of death. That's the rule, 9 months. If the estate doesn't have liquidity, meaning cash, the executor has to sell assets, usually the house. Here's a real scenario. Guy named Paul dies in Massachusetts in 2026. He's got a paid off house worth $1.1 million. He's got $400,000 in his 401k. He's got about $200,000 in other assets. Total estate, $1.7 million. Massachusetts exemption is $1 million. He's over by $700,000. Massachusetts' estate tax rate starts at around 10% and goes up. Let's call it an average of 12% on the overage. That's $84,000 due to the state his son inherits. The son doesn't have $84,000 in cash. The 401k is pre-tax, so if he cashes it out, he's paying income tax on top of the estate tax. The easiest option? Sell the house. Paul worked his whole life to pay off that house so his kid could have it. The state took it instead. Now, here's the kicker. Most people don't know their state has an estate tax until someone dies. There's no annual reminder, no bill in the mail. It just shows up after the funeral when emotions are high and decisions are bad. The window to do any planning closes the second someone dies. If Paul had known, he could have set up a trust. He could have done gradual gifting. He could have relocated to a state with no estate tax, like Florida. But he didn't know, because nobody tells you until it's too late. And look, I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. But I am telling you the incentive structure is designed to capture wealth at the moment of transfer. The state doesn't want your income. They want your assets. And 2026 is when the math changes for a lot of families who thought they were safe. Escalation 3, Medicaid estate recovery. This one is emotionally the worst because it punishes people for getting old. Long-term care is expensive. A nursing home costs anywhere from $70,000 to $120,000 a year, depending on where you live. Most people can't afford that. Medicare doesn't cover it. You spend down your assets, and when you're broke enough, Medicaid steps in. Here's the deal. They don't advertise. While you're alive, Medicaid usually exempts your primary residence. You can keep the house. That's a relief. But after you die, the state is legally required, in most cases, to try to recover what they paid out. It's called estate recovery, and the house is the main target. Let me tell you about a woman named Carol. Real case documented in Wisconsin. Carol is 79, lived alone. Her husband died in 2012. She develops dementia. Her daughter tries to take care of her at home, but it gets too hard. Carol moves into a nursing home. It costs $86,000 a year. Medicaid covers it. Carol lives there for 4 years. Total cost to Medicaid, $344,000. Carol dies in 2024. She still owns the house. It's worth $290,000. The state of Wisconsin files a claim against the estate. The house is sold. The state takes $290,000. That's all there is. The daughter inherits nothing. Now, the daughter's upset. She asks, why didn't anyone tell me this would happen? Here's the answer. They did. It's in the Medicaid enrollment paperwork. Page 17, paragraph 3, subsection B. Nobody reads it. And even if you do, it's written in legal language designed to obscure, not clarify. The caseworker doesn't sit you down and say, hey, just so you know, we're going to take your mom's house after she dies. They just process the application. Here's where it gets really interesting. There are ways to protect the house from Medicaid recovery. You can transfer it to certain relatives. You can set up specific kinds of trusts, but there's a catch. Medicaid has a 5-year look-back period. If you transfer assets within 5 years of applying for Medicaid, you get hit with a penalty period where you're ineligible for benefits. So if Carol had transferred the house to her daughter in 2018, before she needed care in 2020, she would have been fine. But nobody thinks about this until the crisis happens. And by then, it's too late. The incentive structure here is clear. Medicaid is helpful. It pays for care people genuinely need. But it's also a loan, not a gift. And the collateral is your house. The state is incentivized to recover as much as possible. They have entire departments dedicated to this. They're good at it. You, on the other hand, are dealing with this for the first time under stress with no roadmap. Now, here's the kicker. A lot of people think, I'll just gift the house to my kids right now. Problem solved. Except that triggers the look back if you need care within 5 years. And if you do it wrong, you can trigger gift taxes. And if the kids get divorced or get sued, the house is now in their asset column, which means their creditors can come after it. Protecting assets is a chess game. Most people are playing checkers. Escalation 4, reverse mortgages. This one is marketed as the solution. You're house rich and cash poor. You take out a reverse mortgage, no monthly payments. You get to stay in your home. You access your equity. Sounds perfect. Here's what the commercials don't emphasize. You still have to pay property taxes. You still have to pay homeowners insurance. You still have to maintain the property. If you fail on any of those three, the loan defaults. And when the loan defaults, the bank forecloses. Let me tell you about a guy named Richard. Real case, Florida. Richard is 72. He takes out a reverse mortgage in 2020, gets a lump sum of $200,000, uses it to pay off medical debt and do some home repairs. Feels like he bought himself breathing room. In 2021, Florida property taxes jump. Insurance after Hurricane Ian goes insane. Richard's annual property tax bill goes from $3,800 to $5,200. His insurance goes from $2,200 a year to $7,800 a year. He's now paying $13,000 a year in taxes and insurance. His Social Security is $2,200 a month. That's $26,000 a year. After taxes, insurance, food, utilities, medication, he's got almost nothing left. He misses a property tax payment in 2023. The reverse mortgage company gets notified by the county. They send Richard a letter. He ignores it because he's overwhelmed. The company advances the payment on his behalf and adds it to his loan balance plus interest. Same thing happens in 2024. Now his loan balance has grown by $15,000 in 2 years, just from the advance payments. Plus, the interest on the original loan is compounding. Richard is now underwater. The loan balance is higher than the value of the house. In 2025, the lender forecloses. Richard moves in with his daughter. The house is sold at foreclosure. The lender takes what they're owed. Richard's equity, the $200,000 he thought he had unlocked, is gone. He's 77 and has nothing. Here's the kicker. The reverse mortgage industry is not evil. They're just playing the game the way it's designed. They bet that you'll keep up with taxes and insurance. If you do, great. If you don't, they have collateral. It's rational. But the marketing is designed to downplay the risk. They show happy seniors on the beach. They don't show you the Excel spreadsheet where property taxes increase 3.5% annually, and insurance increases 8% annually, and your fixed income increases 0% annually. Do that math over 10 years and see where you end up. Now, let me show you what this looks like in practice with real numbers. Let's build a scenario. You're 65 years old, you live in North Carolina. You own a house worth $400,000, paid off. You're on Social Security, about $2,800 a month, and you have a small pension, another $1,200. $4,000 a month total, $48,000 a year. Your property taxes are about $4,500 a year. Your homeowner's insurance is about $1,800 a year. That's $6,300 in non-negotiable annual costs just to keep the house. You're doing fine. Then your spouse dies. Your income drops because the Social Security survivor benefit is lower. You're down to about $3,200 a month, $38,000 a year. Meanwhile, property taxes increase. North Carolina reassesses every few years. Your house is now valued at $450,000. Taxes go to $5,200. Insurance claims from hurricanes are up. Your premium goes to $2,700. You're now paying $7,900 a year just for taxes and insurance. That's 20% of your income. You develop a health issue. Let's say you need a hip replacement. Medicare covers most of it, but not all. Out-of-pocket costs are about $6,500. You drain your savings. Now you're behind on property taxes. The county adds penalties. You owe $6,200 instead of $5,200. You can't catch up. You consider a reverse mortgage. You take one out, you get a $150,000 lump sum, you pay off the back taxes, you feel like you've stabilized. But the reverse mortgage doesn't eliminate the annual tax and insurance burden. It just removes the monthly mortgage payment you didn't have anyway because the house was paid off. So you're in the same spot. Taxes and insurance keep going up. In year 2, you're behind again. The reverse mortgage lender advances the payment. Your loan balance grows. In year 5, you owe more than the house is worth. The lender forecloses. You lose the house. Alternatively, let's say you don't take the reverse mortgage. You just fall further behind on taxes. The county forecloses in year 3. You lose the house. Or let's say you stay current on everything, but you need long-term care at 78. You go on Medicaid, you die at 82. The state recovers the cost from your estate by selling the house. Your kids get nothing. In all 3 scenarios, the house you paid off at 65 is gone by 82. This isn't bad luck. This is how the system is designed. The house is the piggy bank. Everyone has a claim on it. You just happen to live there. Now, I can hear the objection. Okay, Mark, this is depressing. What do I actually do? Here's the thing. Most of this is preventable. Not all of it, but most of it. The problem is that prevention requires planning when you don't feel like you need it. That's the psychological trap. You're 65. The house is paid off. You feel secure. The idea of spending $3,000 on an estate planning attorney feels like a waste. So you don't do it. Then you're 78 and it's too late. Let me give you the actual takeaways. Not the feel-good stuff. The stuff that works. Takeaway 1. Know your property tax situation and apply for every exemption you're eligible for. Most states have senior exemptions, freezes, or deferrals, but they don't automatically apply them. You have to file paperwork every year. I'm not joking. Some states make you reapply annually. If you miss the deadline, you lose it for that year. No one calls to remind you. Your job is to call your county assessor's office and ask, what programs exist for someone my age? Then apply. The amount you can save is real. In some states, it's thousands of dollars a year. That's the difference between staying current and falling behind. Takeaway 2. If you live in a state with an estate tax, and your estate is anywhere close to the exemption limit, talk to an estate planning attorney now. Not when you're sick, now. The tools available to you today disappear the moment you die. Trusts, gifting strategies, relocating to a different state, these all require time. If your estate is worth more than $1 million and you live in Oregon, Massachusetts, or a handful of other states, you need a plan. The cost of planning is a few $1,000s. The cost of not planning is losing the house. Takeaway 3. If long-term care is even a remote possibility, and statistically it is for most people, understand the Medicaid rules in your state before you need care. The 5-year look back is real. If you want to protect your house, you need to move it out of your name at least 5 years before you apply for Medicaid. That means planning in your 60s, not your 70s. And do it with professional help, because if you screw it up, you can trigger penalties that make things worse. This isn't a DIY project. And look, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like a lot of work. It is. But here's the alternative. You do nothing. You assume it'll work out. Then you're 79 and you get a letter you don't understand. You call a number that puts you on hold for 40 minutes. You talk to someone who can't help you. You miss a deadline and you lose the house. The system is not designed to help you. It's designed to process you. The people who win are the ones who understand the rules before they need them. Here's the final thing. The reason most people lose their houses isn't because they're irresponsible. It's because the system has multiple failure points, and you only need to hit one of them. Miss one property tax payment, die in the wrong state, need care at the wrong time, take the wrong loan. Any one of those can cost you everything. And the system doesn't warn you. It just executes. The psychological shift you need to make is this. Stop thinking of your paid off house as an asset you own. Start thinking of it as an asset other people have claims on. The county has a claim via property taxes. The state has a claim via state taxes. Medicaid has a claim if you need care. The bank has a claim if you take a reverse mortgage. Your job is to manage those claims before they manage you. And here's my final cynical observation. What 99% of people do is usually what not to do. Most people don't plan. Most people don't read the documents. Most people assume the system is fair. And most people lose the house. If you want a different outcome, you have to behave differently. That means reading the boring stuff. That means asking uncomfortable questions. That means spending money on attorneys and accountants before you think you need them. The house you paid off isn't safe just because the mortgage is gone. It's only safe if you understand every mechanism that can take it and you act accordingly. 2026 is when the estate tax exemption drops and the pressure increases. If you're over 50 and you own property, this applies to you. Don't wait for the letter. By the time it arrives, your option's already gone.